Hi, this is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Welcome to Morning Mindset Cafe, where today we are discussing Napoleon Hill's Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. And in all honesty, he did write this book with W. Clement Stone. You know, if you don't know W. Clement Stone, what he did was he turned a $100 investment into a multi-million-dollar organization with an emphasis on sales training. He's outstanding, W. Clement Stone. Everything that he's taught is still vital and worthwhile today. So anyway, here's my copy, printed in 1969. We are entering into chapter 7, and the chapter is titled Learn to See. And it's interesting that when I first saw this title, I can recall thinking, this is all about the woo-woo stuff of learning to see inside, learning to see who I really am, and all the mental acuity needed in order to see clearly who I am and what I'm doing. It's not that woo-woo. No, instead, it is the realization, understanding that learn to see is important because seeing is a learned process. It truly is. And that is shown by a quick story at the beginning of this chapter that talks about George Campbell. He was born blind. It's a congenital cataracts is what he had. So when he was 6 years old, an important lesson learned at 6 years old was when somebody tossed a ball to him and yelled out, "Look out, it'll hit you." And of course he didn't see it, and he got hit by a ball. He wasn't hurt, but he was really puzzled, and he wanted to know how Bill knew what was going to happen to him before he did. And that's when she explained to him what it meant for him to be blind, and this is how she did it. She took one of his hands in hers and counted the fingers and said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Purists, yes, I know that's a thumb, but in general, we all call that a finger, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She says these fingers are similar to what is known as 5 senses. And then she began to explain that this one is for hearing, this one is for touch, this one is for smell, this one is for taste, and this one is for sight. And each of those 5 senses, just like these fingers, send messages to our brain. Then she closed the little finger, which she had named sight, and tied it so that it would stay next to the palm of his hand. Yeah, it needed to be tied. All right, so next to the palm, right? She says, "George, you're different from other boys because you have the use of only 4 senses. And like 4 fingers, 1 is for hearing, 2 is for touch, 3 is for smell, 4 is for taste, but you don't have the use of your sight. I want to show you something. Now stand up." So she stood him up, or he stood up, and she picked up this ball that had actually hit him and said, "Now hold out your hand and see as if you were going to catch this." So he held out his hand, and within a moment, he felt the hard ball hit his fingers. He closed tightly around it and caught it. And she says, "That's just fine. I never want you to forget what you've just done. You can catch a ball with 4 fingers instead of 5. You can also catch and hold. Catch and hold a full and happy life with 4 senses instead of 5, if you get in there and keep trying." Now, in all honesty, his mother's method of using a metaphor in such a simple figure of speech is one of the quickest and most effective methods of communicating ideas between people. We know that, right? If I can associate something over here with something back here, suddenly I get the idea. I comprehend what it is you're trying to tell me. And he never forgot that, because for him, that was a symbol of hope, the 4 fingers. That was his symbol of hope. And whenever he became discouraged because of his handicap, lack of sight, he used that symbol as a self-motivator. It became a form of self-expression to him. He would repeat 4 fingers instead of 5 frequently. And at times of need, it would flash from his subconscious to his conscious mind. And he learned that his mother was right. He was able to catch a full life and hold it with the use of the four senses that he did have. But it doesn't end there. There came a time when he was 18 years old that he had an opportunity to have an operation on his eyes. There's a lot of detail about how that operation came about, and some of the detail of, this is something pretty risky. In that day and age, it's darn risky. But he had that operation, and the day came for the bandages to remove. So when that gauze was taken from his head and from his eyes, there was only a blur of light, and he despaired. He's still blind. And for one awful moment, he lay thinking. Then he heard the doctor move beside his bed, and something was placed over his eyes, and the doctor says, "Now, can you see?" And he raised his head slightly from the pillow, and the blur of light became color, the color of form, and then a figure. And then he heard his name, George. He recognized the voice as his mother's voice. And for the first time in 18 years, he was seeing his mother. And there were the tired eyes, the wrinkled 62-year-old face, and the knotted, gnarled hands. But to George, she was most beautiful. To him, she was an angel. To this day, he treasures his first visual picture, which is the sight of his mother. And this is what he has to say. None of us can understand the miracle of sight unless we have had to do without it. Seeing is a learned process. There's an actual process that happens in the mind, from the eye to the brain. What we see is always an interpretation of the mind. We have to train the mind to interpret what we see. Think about that for a second. This is what it means to learn to see. We have to train our minds to interpret what we see and how we see it, right? It is backed up by science. Most of the process of seeing is not done by the eyes at all. They act as hands, which reach out there and grab meaningless things, bring them into the brain. The brain turns the things over to memory. And it's not until the brain interprets it in terms of comparative action that we actually see anything. Now, at this point, I can share links with you and stories that are puzzling at first, unless you understand the scientific process of how we actually see things as humans. There's a story of tribes on various islands in the ocean, especially in the South Pacific, as explorers were moving into those and checking out those islands, and why the tribal people weren't frightened and didn't understand what was happening when something new came across their water. They didn't even see the boats. They didn't know what was happening. If you can imagine, there's a story of looking out over an ocean and seeing the water parting and not understanding why the water is parting until asking the question of, why is that water parting? And then seeing a structure on top of the water. But it came first that the water was parting because we knew what that looked like, right? We knew what that looked like, but we weren't familiar at all with the structure that was floating on the water. So again, they had to train, they had to associate that activity with something that they were familiar with in order to understand a boat and what a boat looks like. So having said that, some of us go through life seeing very little of the power and the glory around us, don't it? Isn't that true? Some of us go through life seeing very little of the power and the glory around us. We don't properly filter the information that our eyes give us through the mental processes of the brain. Therefore, as a result, we often behold things without really seeing them at all. We receive physical impressions without grasping their meaning to us, and we don't, in other words, put positive mental attitude to work on the impressions that are sent to our brain. So here's a question to all of us. Is it time to have our mental vision checked? When our mental vision becomes distorted, it can cause us to grope in a haze of false concepts. Oh, bumping and hurting ourselves and others unnecessarily, right? So can we imagine ourselves doing that? Listen, this is the way I've always done it, people. All right, this is the way I've always done it. I know you're showing me a new way, but I can't see how that is going to benefit me now. So I'm going to continue doing things my way. It's the only way I know. I've said that. Have you ever said that? I don't see how that's going to be helpful. Listen to yourself the next time you say it out loud. Not the I don't get it, not the I don't understand, but literally when I have said this, I don't see the benefit. And I've said it just offhand. It gave no real thought to what was in front of me, didn't think it through, didn't ask questions. There have been times when I've just looked and said, I don't see the benefit, and moved on. There's other times when I've said that and I have caught myself, and my inquisitive nature is such that I ask the questions, which is what we need to learn to do in order to teach ourselves to interpret things differently. Ask the questions. And the idea is that, are we nearsighted or farsighted mentally? Because when I dismiss something offhand with, well, I don't see the benefit, and it's usually the attitude I have. I don't see why I should look any further. I don't see anything good in that. And I walk away. That's short-sighted thinking. So if an opportunity presents itself, am I really going to be able to see it as an opportunity? No. But if I have farsighted thinking, if I have trained myself to look a little deeper than the surface, to ask a few questions, to see, well, does this fit in with what I'm doing now? Well, there's a possibility, maybe. And sometimes it takes 10 minutes, sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes a little longer and real investigative things to determine if this is really, really the route I need to go. The idea is to see the opportunity that's in there, to see the benefit, and then determine whether or not it actually is going to work for me. So creative thinking, creative seeing is how things actually happen, how you take an idea from just an idea to put it into action to something that comes of it. One example that's put in here is cypress gardens in Florida. In what before was cypress gardens, okay, is a guy that goes into the heart of the citrus belt in Florida, in a town called Winter Haven. Surrounding country is farmland, considered by most people an area completely unsuited for a large tourist attraction. It's isolated, no beach, no mountains, mile after mile of rolling hills with little lakes and cypress swamps. Then there came a man by the name of Richard Pope, also known as Dick Pope. So he bought one of those cypress swamps, put a fence around it, and turned down an offer of $1 million for the world-famous cypress gardens, because what he saw was an opportunity. Now, having said that, now we're going to go a little deeper, right? Because he was farsighted. He saw that there's an opportunity here as an attraction, a tourist attraction. So he took that, and there was a question about advertising, and he knew that the only way he was going to be able to draw people into really this isolated place was through a barrage of advertising. Well, ads cost money, so what Dick did was pretty simple. He went to the popular photography business, set up a photo supply house at Cypress Garden, sold his visitors film, and then taught them how to take spectacular shots of the garden. Then he hired skilled water skiers. He put them through intricate performances while over a loudspeaker he announced to the public exactly what camera settings they should use in order to catch the action. Then those tourists and those travelers went back home. The very best trip pictures were always of Cypress Gardens. And they, by word of mouth, gave Dick Pope and Cypress Gardens the best type of advertising possible. All right, I'm going to stop there because guess what? We have social media today. And if you can't see how social media is the word of mouth on steroids for your business, you're very, very nearsighted. To me, it's that simple. A farsighted person sees that I have a single message, I have a product, I have a service. This is what I've decided that I'm going to participate in or sell or make money from. I have very little money. I need to attract buyers, tourists, venture capitalists, joint venture people. I can use social media, tell people how to do things related to what it is that I'm selling. Let them get excited about being able to put it into place and seeing results of what I've told them or shared with them or taught them how to do. And through their word of mouth can get more customers. Yeah. All right. So Catherine is saying, my father-in-law hasn't had full hearing since the 40s, and when he got hearing aids a few years back, he was overwhelmed by the sound, including things like the gravel under his feet or water hitting the metal sink. We tried to get him to understand that his mind had to get used to the sounds, and then would start adjusting to ignore the normal background noise. Oh my God, Catherine, do I understand that? I understand that because when I got my first set of hearing aids, I'm driving in my car, and honest to God's truth, I thought the sucker was going to fall apart. I was hearing rattlings and roarings and clingings and bangings, and I sat in the car, go out to the parking lot, got my new hearing aids in. I go to the parking lot, get in the car. By then, I'm really aware of, I've got doors. Hell, I remember the first time I heard the toilet flushing. It was like somebody bust a water pipe. That was the first real noticeable difference. So anyway, I go out to the car and I turn the ignition on and I hear this thing and I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be able to get home? And I thought, wait a second. Could be based on what the doctor had told me in the office there on my reaction to the water and people talking. Could be perfectly normal. Let's see if I can get home and then we'll check it out. That's what I did. So when I was talking to a gentleman who wore hearing aids, right? And I told him I was so excited. I got in my hearing aids and all this, and I got in the car and his first words were, he said, wait a second. Yeah, I thought it was going to fall apart, didn't you? Wow. So yeah, Catherine, I get it. And that's exactly what happens. My brain adjusted to the new sounds. I first had to identify what they were. And that's the difficulty. Just as in the story, being able to see for the first time and not being able to interpret what we're seeing, the same thing applied with my hearing. I had to interpret, what is it I'm hearing? Yeah. Same thing applies, right? Same thing applies when we're looking at opportunities, when we are moving forward in our lives today. Are we nearsighted or are we farsighted? That's what we're talking about. Is how do we learn how to see? How do we change how we interpret what we see? How do we apply positive mental attitude to what we see? A big shout out to everybody who's joined us. Hello, Yuri. Nice to have you with us. Samantha, Linda, Steve. Good to see you this morning. Mastender, so welcome. Yes, waving to you, saying hello, everybody. Hope you have your cup of coffee. Thoughts? Being nearsighted or farsighted, learning how to, understanding that we have to retrain ourselves, right? We have to train ourselves to interpret what we see. I mean, when we have all of the extra that comes with us after time, things have always been this way, right? My mental perception is what it is. Well, I've decided I'm going to change it because it needs to be better. And this is telling us how we do that. We need to understand that seeing is a learned process. The physical act of seeing is only 9/10. 1/10 of what happens. The physical act, 9/10 of it happens in the brain and what we interpret, literally what we see, the colors, the shapes, the size. Oh, it's learned through association. You know? What we see is learned through association. If I see somebody who is successful, and I see enough people who are successful, I can start seeing that maybe what I'm doing is going to bring me the same success that they have because I'm modeling myself after them. We can take a look at what we have right now. We can look at our skills, our abilities, our knowledge, our expertise, our content that we currently have. Nearsighted or negative mental attitude, nearsightedness says, well, there isn't enough here. I can't do anything with what I have right now. Or plodding along and working day to day, and this will get me enough money to get through the week or the month. Positive mental attitude and farsightedness says, let's take another look at what I already have. Understand that my vision is clouded because I know too much about me, right? So let's grab some other people who can help me to see what it is that I have and can help me to see it differently. Honest to God's truth, when I started my business, it was the sole focus was offering research services to businesses, primarily in the financial sector, and then manufacturing and service industries. That's how I started my business in June of 2008. September of 2008, the financial crash happened, which of course pretty much wiped out most of my customers in the financial sector. All right, all of them. When they started coming back to me in early 2009, and they weren't needing research, they were needing marketing. I've been in marketing since the 80s. I ran a direct marketing firm in the 80s, you know, but I hadn't really done marketing. Well, I can't even say that because I had done marketing up until the late 90s and then some into the 2000s, off and on throughout. I didn't think about selling marketing. I really didn't. And when I talked to them, oh, you need email marketing? Sure, I know how to do that. Oh, you need a website? Sure, I can build that. It's just, it was the nearsightedness of thinking. This is the thinking. Well, if I know how to do it, it can't be that special. Well, obviously, other people know how to do it. Yep. So I flipped the business, renamed it Search by Burke. Still, that is the business today. And all the things that I already knew how to do, not only could I now do them myself or make the decision, again, farsightedness, determine that I wanted to be a business owner. I want to be doing all the work. But because of the knowledge that I have and the expertise I have in the areas of online marketing, I was able to vet team members so that I could select people that were going to do the best work. And that became my team for quite a few years. And then I flipped the business because I started recognizing and having the help of others, recognize the skills that I have and really where my heart is, where I want to take the business. But I had to bring somebody else in on the outside because sometimes when we look in our own backyard, all we see are the weeds. Take somebody else to come in and say, oh, look at that fabulous plot of dirt. We could grow a garden there. I never saw that because all I saw were the weeds, right? So that's what this is telling us, is that are you able to see somebody else's abilities, capabilities, capacities, and viewpoint? I mean, if you're looking at somebody else, isn't it annoying when you sit and look at somebody and see that potential and see that, wow, why aren't you over here? Well, the same thing's being done about you, and it's being done about me. People are looking at us and they're seeing things that we don't see. So how can we get to see what they see? We ask them. We spend time with them. We listen. And that's what I ended up doing, because I was hearing people say, Charlene, I love how you explain things. When I heard that often enough, I realized, well, maybe I need to expand the training that I do. I know it took me long enough, but oh, okay. Charlene, I love how you're able to take the complicated and simplify it so I can understand. So maybe that's something that I can offer in my consulting. I love how you're able to take all that data and information and put it into a report and then explain it to me, because I don't get it. Yeah, maybe I ought to offer that as business research services. Yeah. Yes, Steve, understanding. So simple, so basic, so elusive. Oh, my word, isn't it? Isn't it? And yet, what we're being told here is that if we begin asking ourselves questions, if we apply the principles of success that we've been talking about to this point, we can teach ourselves how to see differently. We can also understand the fact that if we don't have the answers, the principles tell us, go ask somebody, seek an expert. And once we have the answers, then we can convert that into reality. We can change that idea into a reality by going into action. Any other comments? Anybody like to join me in the live stream and have a discussion about learning to see? How to see opportunities? I think that, was it yesterday we had somebody in the room that was saying, I'm always looking for the $1 million opportunity. And then comes a question based just on this. What makes you think it's not in front of you right now? There's something to take with you through the day. What makes you think it's not in front of you right now? Good morning, Steve.
Oh, Charlene, I've got to change my whole schedule to be up here to...
I know. How awesome is that? Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it was so wonderful to see.
I'm doing it regularly because these are so awesome. There's so much there. Can I share a little story?
Of course you can.
I used to work for Motorola. I've mentioned that to many people many times. It was a big part of my life. And I hired a young woman who was blind to run our central stores operation. I had spent a little bit of time looking at the system. The division of Motorola that I was in was new. It was created to solve a need. It was called the Information Systems Group. So you can tell what was happening. And it had actually been the folding in of 3 smaller companies that Motorola had purchased, along with some new departments. And they were all doing their own office supply purchases. The secretaries in each small department would purchase the supplies that their people, their managers and employees needed, store them in a little closet somewhere or in their desk drawers and dole them out as they were needed. So if you can just imagine 300,000 square foot new facility, brand new office facility and manufacturing wing, and about 1,200 people, you can just imagine all the boxes of pens and pads stuck in stores somewhere. I mean, tons around the company, because every secretary had to have a few extra just in case. So I consolidated all of that into one central stores operation. Huge saving, literally thousands and thousands of dollars every month saving by doing that. And much more efficient. We already had a mail room with a cart that went around the building twice a day that could deliver this material. And I needed somebody then to be there and fill the orders, put them out. So I hired a young lady named Phyllis, who was blind since birth. People thought I was nuts. She's got to take orders on the phone. People give her a list of stuff, fill that order out, go and pick the things off the shelf and put them in a bag and pop them into the mail cart when it goes by so they can go to the department. She's got to label the thing to go to the department. A blind person can't do that. They can't see the stuff on the shelf. So we had a fellow who was the receiver. I was involved in the facilities administration department. And we had a fellow who was the receiver who got all the stuff on the dock and brought it into the places and so on. And we set up the shelves in the central stores area, and we labeled them with, they have, the Dymo labels that punch, and you get the sticky tape label that goes on with the three-dimensional letters pushed through it. Well, they make those in Braille, and you can punch Braille for the name of the item. So we did that, and we put those labels on the shelves for the items, and this fellow would come in and unpack the items and put them on the shelves where they go, and so they would match up with the Braille labels. And of course, Phyllis got to know because of the way she operated where they were anyway, and then she could just double check by running her fingers over the Braille label to make sure she had the right pens. You could have Bic pens and have red and blue and black ink, and she could tell which was which, and we kept those separated so that red was on one shelf, blue was on another. They didn't get mixed up. They weren't side by side, so she always got the right ones. And that just worked out beautifully. I mean, it was awesome. We got a typewriter that typed in Braille so that when she was taking orders on the phone, she could type and have her order on a piece of paper that was Braille that she could go and read the order to fill it. Just awesome. We found the solutions that were necessary to make that work, and she was an amazing employee. But when we first hired her, and she was there and came to me for the for the intro to the company, I knew that she would need to learn where things were in the company. So I took her out and walked her around the building to let her learn the floor patterns and the departments and so on. And I was out doing that, and I got a call from my boss, who was a corporate director, and he was calling me, and he said, I need you for something. Where are you right now? I'll come and meet you. And I said, oh, I'm here in, and I named whatever department I was in, showing Phyllis around the building. And I stopped in the middle, in the middle of talking to my boss and thought, I'm not showing her anything. She can't see. And I realized that my language did not encompass a totally blind person. I was deficient in that area. Now, I mean, when I just described this now, I said I was taking her so she could learn the pattern of the building. I didn't say I was taking her to show her around the building. I changed the way I looked at the process. It was my deficiency, not hers. I was the handicapped person, if you want to use that term. And it really opened my eyes. I mean, I'm sorry for the cliches here, but it truly opened my inner vision to see things in a different light. And if we can do that, if we can let go of those preconceived structures that we've built over our life, and the older we get, the tougher it is to let go of them. So, when you're younger and you have the opportunities, you need to embrace those opportunities and take advantage of them. And that one little episode in my life, I think, changed my way. Isn't it interesting that a blind person could teach me to see? It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's just awesome. So I wanted to share that with you this morning because what you were talking about perception, is just, it's
Well,
so
that's a perfect
important to
story.
our, yeah.
It fits perfectly into this because the idea is that I've got to mute you so I don't hear me. Hold on. I don't know if you guys get echo, but I'm muting Steve so I don't hear myself at the moment. Lab will fix that shortly. So anyway, it's the perfect story to show us how we can see things differently. And that's the whole point of this, is to ask ourselves questions of, well, why not? It's oftentimes where it starts, isn't it? Well, why not me? And then go from there into, so how can I? And ask those kind of questions and seek the expert advice, or in your case, seek areas where you can get the proper tools to get it done. But it is how we interpret what we see, which is our perception and our perspective, which is why it's so important to understand the value of what we're doing here, which is discussing those success principles, which all ties together to help us to see things differently. That's the only way to grow, right? That's
Well,
my thought.
we miss that so easily, and you just nailed it. Some little thing that you just said that we often overlook. You said, why not? Most of us say, why me? We look at it from the negative side. Oh Lord, why me? Why is it falling on me? And we say, why not? How do we turn what is happening into something of value? And it's just a matter of refocusing, relooking at things, reperceiving, putting your own your own view on it, and exercising that view. It's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies, and so it's there. And I just I'm so grateful over my life, the wonderful people that have shared so many good things with me, the mentors I've had, and just the people that I've bumped into, in my daily routines that have ended up sharing little things, and it's the sum total of those little things that we build that makes us who we are. A mentor of mine once said, "It's hard to fly with the eagles if you're down on the ground pecking with the turkeys." And it's so true. You need to put yourself in the place where you want to be. It's up to you.
How true is that? And for me, recently, I just put myself into a group. Actually, I was invited into a group of very successful business people. No names that anybody here would recognize, but it's not important, right? That's not the important part. The important part is they know how to be successful, and they know how to be good people while they're successful. Not only are they building businesses and making money, they're also focused on how to help others along the way. And not just help others to be successful and grow their businesses, but one of the causes is feeding the homeless. Literally, they go out and there's tables of the food that they brought to feed the homeless, right? And this is something that's dear to their heart. They're not advertising it anywhere else except in this group that I'm in, as a way to show that I'm so excited to share with you. It's safe to share with you. I'm not going to they don't say this, but we all know what happens. Well, you're just trying to bring limelight onto you of how good you are and all that silly crap. But instead, to be in a group of people that say, this is what I did this weekend, and somebody else comes in and says, you know what, I'm really excited to share. It was great to be able to help on a Habitat for Humanity house. Or somebody else says that one of the best things that happened to me this week was being able to write a check for somebody's rent. And so you're getting that balance of what I look for, which is people who are moving forward, growing their businesses, growing their hearts, growing their minds. And growing their hearts is about the sharing and the generosity of giving what they have, giving of what they have, and recognizing that they can, and not be lesser for it, but be greater for it and be greater for the sharing. I've had a really good weekend. So
Well,
It's still carrying me through.
given thou
But that's
shalt.
how it manifests.
Yeah, if you look at the teachings wherever they come from your faith, your religion, from philosophy over the over history, you see that concept so often, and it's what you give comes back to you, and
Mhm.
it's cyclic, but it doesn't. This is the problem that people do. They look for a return, first of all, and secondly, they look for a return from the path where they gave. And that isn't going to
Yeah.
happen. You give without the expectation of receiving, and you don't worry about where the receiving comes from. And it happens. It's just so powerful. Uh, what I love here in your presentations, the books that you're working through, this one, the positive mental attitude, and your previous one, certainly foundational books. And in my blabs, I'm always sharing links to books for people that I recommend that they get, to the point that I think sometimes people must think, oh God, here he goes again sharing a book. But there are so many foundational books out there that have been published over the years. We're living at a fabulous time where we are on the pinnacle. We're on the top of the mountain as far as the information goes, and we have the information systems that allow us to get access to that information. Probably 98% of the books that I share are free. Some of them are commercial books that have been offered for free that day or for a couple of days on Amazon, and so I promote them particularly on that day. But I try always to get books for free, so there's no reason for a person not getting them. They're free, and you don't have to ship them because they're digital. You get them right to your computer, right to your smart device, and the app to read them. If you don't have the device, the right device, then the app to read them is free. So
That's
what's
right.
your
It's all
excuse
there.
except you?
That's
We have to engage. We have to get. A car doesn't go until you put it in gear. And I think that's the trouble with so many of us, is putting ourselves in gear to get going.
Yeah.
And if we could just do that regularly, we'll
That's
travel.
part of the reason for today. That's part of the reason I'm here, right? Is to help us all. Let's move forward. Let's take what we have now. What did you learn today? What's your takeaway today? What can you take with you to move forward with, to get us into gear? I like the analogy there. And the only reason I've picked the books I have, after having gone through Think and Grow Rich now 4 times, is that I figured it was safe to stay on something that was so foundational. And that way it's not all about me. It really is about the book, and it's something people it's a public domain, so they can download it. So that's what I'm looking for. Again, I'm looking for actually books that I can refer to as I move forward beyond Success Through Positive Mental Attitude and Think and Grow Rich. But my requirements are they have to be available through PDF so that everybody can download it or at least read along the portion that I'm referencing so they know where we are in the book, and that it's downloadable so that they can take it with them, which is why I always share the link so that you can download it. But if it's foundational, that's really, we've had a few recommendations come through, which have been pretty good. They're not free, though. They're not free. So the only way I think it's going to work is if everybody has access to the same information. Then we can share how we're all seeing it, which is a little different, and then we can learn from each other how to see it a little differently.
Well, and the material is so universal. Who better than Napoleon Hill and W. Clement Stone? You've got people who, first of all, they learned their craft. Both of them, they learned what they were doing. They did their research. Something that I harp on again ad nauseum. The need to learn our craft, whatever it is we do. And even the simple things, the basic things, not just because they work, but because they're right. And so you have to fix those things that you're not doing right, and you have to learn the things that you don't know. The beauty is that as individuals, we can all do that. Barring some amazing mental deficiency, we are all capable of learning these things. I have people say to me so many times, "Oh, I'm so dumb. I'm so stupid. I can't do that." And you're not stupid.
Yeah.
Intellect and knowledge are two completely different things.
Yes.
And we often think of ourselves as stupid or dumb, and we shouldn't. That's a mistake that we do, because we're just laying on the thought that we are, and the subconscious will make us fumble mentally. It does that because it says, "Oh, you want to be stupid? I'll make you stupid." That's good. But when we realize that it's intellect, it's information, not intellect. We simply lack the information, and we can find that. And today, the tools are at our fingertips to find just about anything. You could almost learn brain surgery online. So don't ever say, "Well, it's brain surgery or it's rocket science, and I can't do it." You can. I'm going to share one more quick thing, and then I'll get out of here because I'm taking up a lot of your time. But I often talk about people who are online and tell me they can't do this, they can't do that. They're too stupid to do the things online. And Einstein, who is said by many to be the smartest man who ever lived, he couldn't use a computer. He couldn't get on Facebook. He couldn't do those things. He was, whatever your level is at, if you're watching this right now or you're watching the replay, you have more computer savvy, more computer skill. You are more computer literate than Einstein ever was.
Yep.
So think about that. It isn't anything to do with intellect. It is to do with what you have learned, and you can learn more if you choose to. Anyway, I'll get out of here and leave this open for somebody else and whatever you're doing. Thank you, Charlene, for what you share. You bring so much that is so important to the people that are watching, even if they don't know how important it is. And I know most of them do. So that's absolutely wonderful. Thanks. We'll see you again.
Okay, Steve. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on here. Always a pleasure. Great insight. Insight into how we can learn to see, how we can learn to see differently. Great story about that employee. Big shout out to Alfredo. Hey, hope the little one wasn't too noisy back there. Hope he's still with us. He's been spending a lot of time with his family. He let me know privately. Aaron, glad you're with us. Tammy, new person, nice to see you here. Welcome. Cindy, big hugs to you. Had me a little concerned, was going to be contacting you to see where you were. And Anna, nice to have you with us. So yeah, it's all about asking ourselves questions. Are we nearsighted or are we farsighted? As Steve said, it's not about intellect. It's really not. And that's it's about having the idea, and instead of saying either why me or I'm not good enough, saying why not me, and let's find out how it can be done. It is really a mental perception of our own capabilities and skills. And I used to say, and I actually still say this sometimes when I get caught up in the self-doubt in my own abilities, when it really, I see it as this is stopping me from doing something, one of my prayers is, help me stop thinking. Yeah. Just because what I'm doing is I'm going inward, right? I'm thinking about all the negatives about me, all the why I can't. And when that happens, I literally have to take a mental step back. You all know me. I take a breath, take a deep breath, take a step back, and just say, well, let's just stop thinking and start doing. It's amazing the wonderful things that can happen when we just start doing. And I can say that because I'm able to do, because I before had asked questions about how do I move forward? Well, take a step. Literally pick up the phone, pick up a piece of paper, walk to the front door. If I don't know which direction to go, I can look it up. And if I can't understand, as Steve said, right, everything's right in front of us. We could learn rocket science. I can get you the MIT, Stanford, and other high quality universities offer courses online for free. It's the same thing as sitting in a class. You just don't get a grade. You still learn the same stuff that people who paid for it learned. You don't earn a degree, you don't get a grade, but who cares if you get to learn the concept correctly? So yeah, you could learn rocket science. You could learn anything you want to learn. It's all there. And most of it, quite honestly, is for free. Now here comes the kick. Understanding what you learn. Understanding what you're seeing. Being able to say, I want to see this differently, and I'm struggling with how to change my perception. Then it's time to get with other people and just ask, do you see this as an opportunity for me? I'm seeing this as a potential service offering for my business, but I'm not quite sure what that looks like. See, I say that an awful lot, don't I? And I do. People I work with, well, so what does that look like to you? I've said it here, haven't I? Describe it. Describe what you're seeing. And then I can help you determine whether you're seeing it in a nearsighted or farsighted way and where your gaps are. And maybe we need to take a magnifying glass and really focus on this area. Or you're putting too much focus on something that's really not that important. Reduce the focus. Let's focus on this. And now let's move forward with some action. If people do that for me, thank goodness. Thank goodness. It was the only way that I started growing and my business grew. So any other last comments before I close down the recording portion of this? If he wants to do a quick jump in to be on record. All right, then. Close down the recording and I'll keep the room open for a while and we can have a conversation if you are up for it. Steve, thank you so much for joining me in the live stream. Always a pleasure. Thank you for those putting discussion topics and comments in the chat. You've added quite a bit to this morning's discussion. Thank you for being here, those who are just listening. I appreciate you being here. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouKnow.com. Let's move forward with the day on purpose, with purpose, to grow our hearts, grow our minds, and grow our businesses. Until next time, have a great day.